Hey, so I'm very excited to welcome Deb Sengupta to ask her what's her patent pathway. And Deb is actually a member, she's actually counsel and is a member of the Denton's Intellectual Property and Technology Practice. And her career actually spans over almost 15 years. She's leveraged her deep technical expertise to advocate for her clients and protect their intellectual property. Her practice focuses on chemical, pharmaceutical, and nanotechnology arts, and she advises her clients across the globe on matters related to the preparation and prosecution of domestic and international patent applications, patent infringement and validity opinions, as well as due diligence analyses and freedom to operate analyses. Deb has a PhD in chemistry from Cornell and a JD from George Washington Law School. So, welcome, Deb. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
So the question that we ask first off is what's your patent pathway? And we do that because we know that people get into the patent field in so many different ways, and we want to provide any kind of good insight for incoming practitioners that may be helpful for them. So what's your patent pathway?
Well, I like to say that my journey to where I am today is happenstance. I was born in India and I grew up there, completed my undergraduate studies, and then I came to the US as a graduate student. I always thought I was going to be a scientist or an academic, but I guess life has had other plans. While in grad school, I really enjoyed the science that I was doing, but I also felt that I was missing something. And I was having a conversation with one of the professors on my dissertation committee. And it just happened that he knew someone at an intellectual property boutique firm here in Washington, D.C. And he put me in touch and said, you should consider patent law because you'll be using your science, but it's not really being in a lab. And so I owe him a debt of gratitude for that. When I started my career, I had no idea what an IP boutique firm was, but I came to DC and interviewed. I, of course, knew what a patent was, but I really didn't know that there was a career in patent law for someone like me with just a technical background. When I came to DC after graduate school, I started as a technical specialist at a law firm. And very quickly, I realized that I was doing exactly the same thing that the first year associates that started with me were doing. So that motivated me to go to law school in the evenings. So after a year as a technical specialist, I was admitted to GW Law and I went to the evening program for 4 years and I graduated with a JD. A few years after graduating, I lateral over to Denton's where I am now counsel. So I've basically been through the full spectrum of positions in a patent law career, and that's my story.
I think that's so interesting because I think a lot of people don't necessarily know about the patent field, but also think that you have to be an attorney from the get-go. And I think your pathway starting as a technical specialist is actually very interesting. So, so what do you love about your profession? Maybe even if you can give a little bit of your like what did you love about being a technical specialist, as well as now that you are officially a patent attorney, like what do you love and enjoy about your profession?
Sure. The way I look at it is giving life to my clients' inventions. It's a lot like nurturing a child. And I know it sounds cheesy, but that's sort of how I look at it. And that's what I enjoy about the profession. The life of a patent application begins with the invention disclosure that a scientist files with their company usually. Then you help the inventor nurture the application through its formative process, a formative period by discussing the data, working with the inventor to flesh out the details of the invention and filing the application. Then begins the scholastic period when we are advocating for our client's invention at the patent office. It's a constant dialogue with the patent office. And finally, if you have successfully nurtured the application through this entire process, you get a patent. So that's what I enjoy about the profession. You get to see the nitty-gritties, the behind the scenes of how an invention starts with the inventor and his ideas and then ends up with a patent. And as a technical specialist, what I found very exciting was that I was using my technical knowledge and, like I said, doing essentially what the associates did in terms of getting to understand the invention and advocating for the client and advising the client on how to get the patent through the patent office. And that's what the technical specialist does, sort of like an assisting role. And then as a patent agent, you can do the same thing, and you can actually even file papers at the patent office when you're corresponding with the patent office, but you don't need a law degree to do that. So you have a lot of flexibility in terms of how you want to frame your career in patent law. The other thing that I love about my career and my profession is that I get to see a lot of cool inventions that are in use daily, and it gives me a lot of joy to know that some of the applications that I worked on are included in some of the popular devices or in a successful treatment method that you see. And so that's what I've enjoyed. I also enjoy working with different types of science that I probably would not have had a chance to know more about had I stayed in the research area, focused on one particular research area. So those are some of the advantages and exciting things that happen in my profession.
Yeah, that's so great. And I love that you use the word nurture because it sounds, it just kind of speaks to the heart of that inventive process and being a part of that, So I love that.
Thank you.
So of course, on the flip side, what do you consider to be the most challenging about your job? And could you tell us how you overcame that challenge?
I think one of the more challenging aspects of my job is being the middle person. So I understand the patent office's point of view sometimes, but the client doesn't, and vice versa. For example, sometimes on the inventor side, they get so entrenched in what they believe is an invention that it is difficult to get them to see what the patent office is saying about their invention and responding appropriately. On the other hand, sometimes the patent office is adamant about their interpretation of an invention, which may not align with what the invention really is. So as a middle person, you have to understand both sides of the story and sort of find middle ground to get the patent allowed. And it's a question of communication and being able to communicate clearly and succinctly to get the point across, to make sure everybody is on the same page. So that overcoming the challenge is getting better at advocating for your client, but also explaining to the client where the patent office is coming from. And I really enjoy discussions with the patent office examiners because that often clarifies everyone's position very quickly without having to go through a lengthy dialogue on paper. So that's how I've overcome the communication challenge. The other more universal challenge, of course, in our profession, as I'm sure you know and everybody knows, is carving out time for yourself, which is not really related to the work that we do, but I've gotten better at it as I've gotten more senior. But being a lawyer, we sort of sign up for a gig that requires a lot of time commitment. And it's important to make sure that we are taking time out for ourselves so that we can remain mentally and physically healthy and continue to do what we're doing.
Agreed, agreed. I know one thing we talk about a lot here is life work balance because life comes first. So, yeah, I know that's critically important.
Yes, and I think things are getting better. There's a lot more understanding, at law firms and companies about the mental health aspect and the importance. We've come a long way since when I started 15 years ago. So
That,
that's good to see.
yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome. And I guess so. I guess to kind of round things out, so you've explained to us your patent pathway. You've explained to us what you love and your challenges. What advice do you have for potential practitioners who are new? They're coming into the field. They maybe even considering a career change. So they may be an engineer or a scientist, and they're like, "What what advice would you give to them? Anything you wish that you were told, anything like that?"
There are two things that I think would be helpful to someone starting out in the career. First is don't limit yourself by what you think the profession is. Because, in the patent law, everybody thinks, oh, to be a patent attorney, you have to have a legal degree and do all of these things. But you don't. If you have a technical background, you can still be successful in this profession if that's what you want. And the other thing is that it is good to have specialization in more than one area. For me, being a patent prosecution specialist in the chemical arts is a niche area that I'm good at, and it's gotten me this far, and it's been great. But one does tend to get pigeonholed very quickly in the legal profession, especially if you're good at something, then you become the go-to person and you don't get chances to do other things. And it's difficult to branch out when you're more senior. So my advice to someone starting out would be to become an expert in two or three things so that you're the go-to person for more than one thing so that you get the opportunities that you want later in your career.
Yeah, I think that's actually very interesting. Very interesting. So I guess just to kind of go off of that, so I see because your background is chemistry and nanotechnology, but they all seem related. So when you say, you know, have different specializations, is it within the same technology area, or if you could speak to that just a little bit more?
Sure. What I meant is, if you have an interest in litigation, then, go
Ah,
for that at the beginning. Do the litigation, do the prosecution if you want to do both. Or if you want to be, trademark plus patents, do a little bit of that. Plus, keep an eye on things that are evolving. There are so many new things. Privacy is a big thing now. Data security is a big thing, which falls under the IP umbrella. All of these things you can sort of learn about and become good at so that you're the go-to person as things evolve in these areas a little bit more. I hope that makes
excellent.
sense. Yeah.
Yes, I get it. That's clear. That's clear. So you said that you're actually from India, and was that difficult to become a patent agent?
I won't say it's easy or difficult, but there is a pathway to becoming a patent agent if you're not a US citizen, and that's the one that I chose. What the patent office requires is that you be employed by a law firm that handles patent applications and does a lot of work in the patent law area. And they give you what is called a limited recognition number, which is not really a registration number, but you can do exactly what the patent agents and patent attorneys can do, but it's tied to your employment. So that's how you can be admitted to the patent bar without being a citizen.
Wow, I think that's interesting because a lot of people may not necessarily even know that they think that you just have to be a US citizen or a permanent resident in order to practice before the USPTO. So I think that's really valuable information to share. So thank you.
Correct. There is a pathway, and like I said, there are some things that you have to show for it, but it is possible. And then once you if you ever decide to become a citizen, then you get a registration number like all the other registered patent attorneys. But until then, you have a limited recognition at the patent office. And you
Okay.
have to get it renewed every time. If you're here on a work visa, every time you renew your work visa, you have to renew the recognition at the patent office. So it's a continuous process.
Okay. So did you have to take the patent bar exam, take the registration exam?
You take the exact same exam that all other patent agents and patent attorneys have to take to be admitted to the patent bar. So it's the
Wow.
same examination process.
Okay, that's excellent news. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us because I think that's also a vital piece that people may not be aware of and maybe interested in the profession, but may think that to be a major limitation for them. So thank you. So one other question that I did have for you is, so if you were not a patent attorney, what career would you be in? Like, what would be your thing?
When I was younger, I had aspirations to be a novelist or a pianist or something cool like that. But in all probability, if I was not a patent attorney, I would probably be doing something with animals. I love them. I have 4 rescues, and someday I would love to make animal rescue or wildlife conservation my full-time job, but that's not happening anytime soon. Hopefully, that's what retirement will be for.
Right. Well, I thank you so much, Deb, for just sharing your wisdom with us and being able to just provide little gems for incoming practitioners into the field. Thank you so much.
Happy to help.